You ever heard that old expression, if it ain't broke, don't fix it? Well, this has never been truer than it is here. In a way, AC/DC have made the same record for 40 plus years. Yet no one complains. No one wants them to change. There's no failed experiments, no selling out. All you get is prime rock and roll, from beginning to end, with very little change in between. No sappy love songs, not a ballad in sight. No politics. These guys weren't trying to change the world. They were just trying to have fun while it burned. These guys are without a doubt the most popular Australian rock band of all time. Though I personally prefer Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds, I can perfectly understand why. And you should probably stay away from classic rock radio if you want to love these guys, because if any band's popularity is a curse rather than a blessing, it's these guys. They were simply too popular for their own good, and you'll get sick of them because the radio plays them nonstop. They're the personification of rock and roll. If you look the term up in the dictionary, you'll see a picture of Angus Young doing the duck walk. The band was made by two brothers, Angus and Malcolm Young. Their guitar interplay is easily the best part of the music. Angus was the shredder, with his schoolboy uniform and his short stature at just 5'2". He is the perennial juvenile delinquent, who never sat still. He mostly kept things simple, but he could throw out a complicated riff when the occasion called for it. Just like the iconic Thunderstruck riff or the Who Made Who riff. Malcolm, the older brother, is the brain of the operation, while Angus is the band's heart and soul. Malcolm is the level-headed, grounded one of the two, the glue, if you will, of the band, and he is one of the greatest rhythm guitarists in the business. And then there was Bon Scott, the original singer. Everyone says this band's singers don't actually sing, they just scream, but that wasn't true. With Bon, he actually rarely screamed. He just had a kind of high, shrieking voice that sounded like it screamed at all times, when he was actually just singing. His voice was that of a playful pervert, and that's exactly what he was. All the band's best double entendres came from his lyrics, like Big Balls, gee, wonder what that's about. The Jack, about, well, you know. And of course, Whole Lotta Rosie, the song about getting a fat chick some good lovin'. They all came from his perverted but witty lyrics. To me, he will always be the band's best singer. The band also had a good steady backbeat in the drums and throbbing bouncy bass lines, but it's the guitar and vocals that are the trademark. The formula was simple, because frankly these guys weren't rocket scientists and never pretended to be. The songs were 3 chords featuring simple but catchy repetitive guitar riffs. The choruses were usually just the title of the song. Angus would shred a savage guitar solo. Bon would be singing about one thing while actually talking about something dirty with his slimy but lovable voice. There was no sissy ballads, and for the most part the songs were mostly mid-tempo. Though in the early days of the Bon Scott era, the band actually had a slight punk influence, and you would get an occasional speedster like Let There Be Rock or Whole Lotta Rosie. But mostly what you got was mid-tempo, blues-based hard rock. But sadly, tragedy struck. Bon loved to drink as much as he loved his women, and one day, during a particularly savage bender, he passed out during a binge and never woke up. He choked to death on his own vomit, John Bonham style. The rock and roll lifestyle finally caught up to him. The band considered breaking up, but eventually decided to soldier on, thinking Bon would have wanted it that way. Usually this is where the band falls apart, trying to hold on to relevancy, but collapsing without a core member. But not this time, because they had a new singer in mind. He was Brian Johnson, who was in an obscure rock band called Geordie. In fact, Bon even told the band that if anything ever happened to him, that Brian, who they were friendly with, would be his hand-picked successor. And it was a good decision. When most people say AC/DC singers don't sing, they just scream, well, it's Brian they're talking about. Which is funny because that's not his real voice. Just listen to his early Geordie stuff, and you hear a gruff baritone. But Brian decided that since he was replacing the great Bon Scott, that he should at least try to sound like him. And since Bon was a throaty tenor, Brian completely changed his style to imitate him, becoming the trademark gravel-voiced, high-pitched rasper he has become famous for. He wasn't Bond's equal as a songwriter, but he was still a good writer in the same vein, with some lovably smutty lyrics of his own. Come on, what do you think Giving the Dog a Bone is about? Stay tuned after a brief commercial when I go over the band's classic era in Back in Black. Okay, here's the thing. Do you like horror movies, cute dog videos, music including rock, rap, and classical, baseball, Star Wars, or DBZ? Well, come here to the Hillbilly Review channel, the only place you can find all that crap under one channel. Like and subscribe. I'm not too proud to beg. And if you only like one of those topics, go to one of my detailed playlists to find the topic you want. Let's get with it. Then they made Back in Black, their most famous album. Still the second best-selling album of all time. Don't get me wrong, I consider Back in Black pretty good, but I think it's a tad overrated. I will always prefer the early stuff, the Bon Scott stuff, partially because I miss the speed they had on occasion, which except for a few occasions like Heat Seeker, they would never really try again. And simply I just miss Bon. He was funny, and I just think he was a better singer, and they made better music with him. My favorite AC/DC album is actually Powerage, which isn't considered one of their most famous, but to me, and no less an authority than Keith Richards himself, agree is the band's best. You also got sweet albums like High Voltage, Let There Be Rock, and of course Bon's swan song, Highway to Hell. One of the Back in Black songs was called Have a Drink on Me, a song that glorifies drinking and getting drunk. You might think it was tasteless because Bon drunk himself to death, but you'd be wrong. Everyone knows Bon would have loved it and considered it a fitting tribute to the lifestyle that killed him, but also gave him a lot of joy. But still, don't drink, kids. The band got less consistent despite making the same bluesy hard rock they always did. Brian's aggressive singing caused him to lose his voice quickly, and it took a throat operation for him to get anything close to his original form. You can't just scream like that for 30 years and still keep your voice, you know. The band's best album during the Brian Johnson post-Back in Black years was definitely Razor's Edge, with the immortal classic Thunderstruck. But overall, the guys still made decent music from beginning to end, until Malcolm, the band's leader, tragically fell to dementia and had to retire. And drummer Phil Rudd got house arrested for threatening to kill someone. Though he's out now, and Brian started going deaf. But the band's legacy as one of the most beloved bands of all time is still the same. Honestly, other than the Rolling Stones, I can't think of another classic band with more danceable tunes. Songs you can dance to with groovy bass lines and steady beats. And you get consistency. These guys didn't alienate their fans by changing their sound. They knew what worked and they stuck to it till the bitter end. You always knew what you were getting with these guys, and they didn't disappoint. But more importantly, they were just a ton of fun. Their songs weren't angry or preachy. All they talked about was booze, loose women, and rock and roll, the bare essentials of life, and they lived what they preached.